The rhythmic hum of the TNS Mercy's quantum scanners provided a soothing backdrop to Dr. Emma Hayes' night shift. She sipped her third cup of coffee, her blue eyes fixed on the cascading data streams flowing across her holographic display. Deep space scanning was crucial but monotonous work, humanity's first line of defense against the unknown threats lurking in the void. Another thrilling night of watching static, Doc. Lieutenant Anderson's voice carried a hint of amusement as he entered the scanning bay, bringing with him the scent of the mess hall's infamous synthetic bacon. Emma smiled without taking her eyes off the display. You know what they say, Tom. Space is 99% boredom and 1% sheer terror. I'll take the boredom any day after what happened at Proxima Centauri. The mention of Proxima silenced them both. The massacre was still fresh in everyone's minds. 3 colonies wiped out by an unknown aggressor, leaving behind only quantum echoes and questions. A sudden spike in the data stream jerked Emma from her dark thoughts. She leaned forward, fingers dancing across the holographic interface as she isolated the anomalous signal. That's different, she muttered, her trained ears picking up something that shouldn't exist in random space noise. Tom, are you seeing this? Anderson moved closer, his expression shifting from casual to focused as he studied the readings. Those patterns, they're not random. Emma's fingers flew faster, applying filter after filter to clean up the signal. The complexity suggests artificial origin, but look at these oscillations. They're almost organic in nature. The signal pulsed with an eerily regular rhythm, like a heartbeat, but overlaid with mathematical sequences that defied known physics. As Emma isolated each layer, her coffee grew cold, forgotten. Computer, she commanded, cross-reference this pattern with all known species communication protocols. No match found in database. The AI responded smoothly. However, detected embedded quantum signatures similar to theoretical models of consciousness transfer. Emma felt her pulse quicken. Tom, get the captain. Now. By the time Captain Jack Reynolds arrived, Emma had mapped out the full complexity of the signal. The holographic display showed a 3-dimensional representation, a pulsing, crystalline structure of pure mathematics and what appeared to be encoded consciousness. Talk to me, Doctor, Reynolds said, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic glow. Sir, we're picking up what I believe is a distress signal, but unlike anything we've encountered. The complexity suggests a civilization far beyond our current technology level. But, she hesitated. But what? But there's something wrong with it. The signal contains fragments of what I can only describe as screaming. Not audio screaming, but the mathematical equivalent of consciousness in agony. Reynolds studied the display, his expression grave. Could it be a trap? After Proxima. Possible, Emma admitted, but I don't think so. Look at these patterns here. She highlighted a section of the display. These are proof sequences, mathematical concepts we've never seen before. Why include those in a trap? The signal suddenly spiked, causing several instruments to overload. When it stabilized, a new pattern emerged. My God, Emma whispered. They're solving Graham's conjecture, a mathematical problem we've struggled with for centuries, right in front of us. It's like they're proving they're worth saving. Reynolds watched the mathematical proof unfold in real time, his jaw tight. Location: edge of the Carina Nebula, sir. But it would take at least 7 consecutive FTL jumps to reach them. Given the quantum instability in that region, the odds of survival. Reynolds's voice was quiet. Emma met his gaze. Maybe 85% per jump. Multiply that 7 times. Anderson whistled low. Those aren't great odds, Captain. Reynolds stared at the pulsing signal, its mathematical cry for help continuing to broadcast across the void. After a long moment, he straightened his uniform. Send a message to Earth Command, he ordered. Inform them we've detected a potential first contact situation requiring immediate investigation. Sir, Emma said carefully, you know what Command's response will be after Proxima. They'll order us to ignore it. Reynolds's lips curved in a slight smile. Then it's a good thing the signal's causing interference with our communications array, isn't it, Doctor? We might not receive those orders for quite some time. Emma felt a smile spread across her face as she turned back to her station. Humanity had come a long way since its first steps into space, but some things never changed, like answering a cry for help, no matter the cost. The TNS Mercy's engines hummed to life, preparing for their first jump into the unknown. Captain Reynolds, you are ordered to maintain your current position. That is a direct command from Earth Fleet Admiral Stern. Acknowledge immediately. The Admiral's holographic projection flickered in the Mercy's command center, his face flushed with anger. Around the briefing table, the senior crew exchanged glances. Reynolds stood with his hands clasped behind his back, the picture of military bearing. Admiral, with respect, the signal contains technological and mathematical insights that could advance humanity by centuries. We can't ignore. Did Proxima teach you nothing? Stern's voice crackled with barely contained fury. 3 colonies, Reynolds. 3 colonies and 15,000 lives lost because we rushed to answer an advanced signal. I won't authorize another potential massacre. Emma stepped forward, data tablet in hand. Sir, if I may, this signal is fundamentally different. The mathematical proofs it contains are probably bait, Dr. Hayes. Stern cut her off. Even if they're genuine, the risk is unacceptable. 7 consecutive FTL jumps through unstable space. The odds of survival. We've calculated the odds, Admiral. Reynolds interrupted quietly. Every member of my crew knows the risks. The briefing room fell silent. On the main display, the signal's crystalline pattern continued its haunting pulse, now overlaid with new mathematical theorems that seemed to multiply by the hour. Stern's hologram leaned forward. Jack, listen to me. You've got a promising career ahead. Don't throw it away on a fool's errand. That's an order. Reynolds looked around the room, meeting each crew member's eyes. Mike Sullivan, the engineer, nodded slightly. Dr. Olivia Barnes gripped her medical tablet tighter. Lieutenant Anderson stood straighter. Sir, Reynolds said carefully, it seems we're experiencing some quantum interference with our communications array. Your transmission is breaking up. Reynolds, don't you dare. We'll re-establish contact once we've cleared the interference. Mercy out. Reynolds made a cutting motion, and the hologram vanished. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Anderson cleared his throat. Well, I guess we're all going to prison if we survive this. If we survive. Mike grinned. The way I see it, we've got better odds than the lottery, and people play that every day. Dr. Barnes pulled up a holographic display of their planned route. 7 jumps, each with an 85% survival rate. That gives us about a 32% chance of making it through all 7. Better odds than humanity had of making it to the stars in the first place, Emma pointed out. She manipulated the display, highlighting the signal's origin point. The real question is, what will we find when we get there? Reynolds studied the planned jump points. We'll need to modify the engines between each jump. The quantum instability in that region will tear us apart otherwise. I can do it, Mike said, but we'll need at least 30 minutes between jumps to recalibrate. Any longer, and the local space-time distortions might make our calculations worthless. That's assuming the first jump doesn't atomize us, Anderson added helpfully. Reynolds pressed his palm against the display, causing the route to glow brighter. I won't order anyone to come. This is strictly volunteer. If you want to take the shuttle back to the nearest outpost, now's the time. The crew exchanged looks again. No one moved. Well, Dr. Barnes said dryly, I didn't spend 6 years in medical school to practice on a space station. Besides, someone needs to patch you all up when this goes sideways. Emma stepped up to the display, adding her own calculations. The signal's getting weaker. Whatever's out there, they're running out of time. Reynolds nodded. Stations, everyone. Mike, begin engine modifications for the first jump. Emma, keep monitoring that signal. I want to know the moment anything changes. Dr. Barnes, prep medical for potential quantum radiation exposure. Anderson, plot our course through the debris fields. As the crew moved to their positions, Reynolds remained at the display, studying the twisted path through space they'd have to navigate. 7 jumps through unstable space, each with the potential to tear the ship apart at the quantum level. The end of his career, certainly. Possibly the end of their lives. But somewhere in the void, something was screaming for help. And if humanity had learned anything in its journey to the stars, it was this. You answer that call, no matter the cost. All stations, prepare for first jump. When the TNS Mercy emerged from its final jump, the sight before them silenced every alarm, every warning indicator, and every breathless curse on the bridge. Floating against the backdrop of the Carina Nebula was a vessel that defied comprehension. A massive crystalline structure that pulsed with internal light, its surface faceted like a diamond the size of Manhattan. "Holy shit," Anderson whispered from his station. "That's not a ship. That's a city." Emma's instruments were going haywire, struggling to process the readings. The crystalline structure. It's not just the hull. The entire vessel appears to be one continuous living organism. Living? Reynolds leaned forward in his chair. You mean it's biological? Before Emma could respond, the alien vessel shuddered. Great spears of light erupted from fissures in its surface, and portions of the crystalline structure began to dim. Life signs are everywhere, Dr. Barnes reported, her medical sensors sweeping the vessel. But they're failing. Whatever consciousness inhabits that structure, it's dying. "Mike," Reynolds called to engineering. "Can we establish contact?" "Working on it, Captain." Mike Sullivan's voice carried the strain of someone dealing with technology far beyond their understanding. "Their outer structure seems to resonate at specific frequencies. If I can match our communication array to..." A sudden burst of energy from the alien vessel cut him off. The Mercy's sensors screamed as a wave of crystalline particles washed over their hull. Containment breach in engineering. The computer's warning echoed through the ship. Crystalline growth detected. "Mike? Mike?" Reynolds shouted into the comm. "Still here, Captain." Mike's voice was tight with pain. "But we've got a situation. When I tried to match their frequency, something responded. My environment suit is crystallizing. The growth is accelerating." Dr. Barnes was already moving. "I'm heading to engineering. Tom, I need you with me. If we have to cut him out of that suit." "Go," Reynolds ordered. "Emma, what are we dealing with?" Emma's fingers flew over her console, analyzing the crystalline particles. "They're like nothing we've ever encountered. Each particle appears to carry quantum information, almost like neurons in a crystal matrix. They're trying to communicate, but our biology is too different. The crystallization is their attempt at interface." On the main screen, more sections of the alien vessel were going dark. Whatever was happening to Mike in engineering was just a fraction of the disaster unfolding before them. "Dr. Barnes," Emma called over the comm, "don't cut Mike out of the suit. The crystals aren't attacking him. They're trying to talk to him. His suit's neural interfaces might be our only chance to communicate." In engineering, Mike watched in fascinated horror as the crystalline growth crept up his arm. But Emma was right. He felt no pain. Instead, there was a sensation of reaching, of countless minds brushing against his consciousness. "The Scatheri," he gasped suddenly. I can hear them. They're a collective consciousness. The ship isn't just their vessel. It's part of them. All of them, linked together in a crystal matrix. "What happened to them?" Reynolds demanded. Mike's voice took on a strange, harmonious quality. "Attacked. Hunters who seek to harvest their consciousness, to steal their understanding of crystal-based quantum computing. The damage. It's breaking their collective, fragmenting their shared mind." Through the crystalline interface growing on his suit, Mike felt their pain. The terror of a unified consciousness facing dissolution. But he also felt their wonder at humanity's response to their call. They never expected anyone to come, he translated. Their technology is so advanced that most species either fear them or want to steal from them. They didn't think. They didn't know there were people who would risk everything just to help. The crystal growth had reached Mike's helmet now, creating a shimmering lattice that reflected the emergency lights of engineering. Through it, he saw Dr. Barnes and Anderson arrive, their faces a mixture of horror and awe. "Captain," Mike said, his voice now carrying harmonics that made the air itself vibrate, "they're asking for our help. But they warn us. The hunters are coming back. If we stay, we'll be targets too." Reynolds stood from his chair, facing the massive crystalline vessel through the Mercy's view screen. In the depths of space, humanity had found many wonders and many horrors, but they had never run from either. "Tell them," he said firmly, "that running from a fight isn't the human way." Dr. Olivia Barnes had seen her share of medical emergencies in space, but nothing had prepared her for operating on a crystalline consciousness. She stood in engineering, medical scanner hovering over Mike's partially crystallized suit, while Emma Hayes fed data directly from the ship's quantum sensors to her tablet. "His neural patterns are stable," Olivia announced, studying the readouts. "But the crystalline growth is creating new synaptic pathways throughout his suit's neural interface. It's like they're building a bridge between their way of thinking and ours." Mike's voice carried that strange harmonic quality as he translated the Scatheri's thoughts. "They say their collective consciousness is hemorrhaging. When the hunters attacked, they damaged the crystal matrix that keeps their minds unified. Without it, they'll fragment into individual shards of awareness. A fate worse than death for them." Emma's eyes lit up with sudden understanding. That's why they reached out to Mike's neural interface. They're not just trying to communicate. They're looking for a template of individual consciousness to stabilize their collective. "Can we help them?" Reynolds asked from the bridge, his voice tense over the comm. Olivia bit her lip, mind racing through possibilities. "Maybe. The crystalline structure responds to neural impulses, right? And we use crystal-based quantum tech in our medical neural scanners." She pulled up the schematics for the Mercy's medical bay on her tablet. "If we modify our neural regeneration equipment to match their resonance frequency, we might be able to stabilize their matrix long enough for them to repair themselves." "One problem," Anderson cut in, pointing at the main engineering display. "Those crystal-eating bastards who attacked them. Long-range sensors show they're coming back. 3 ships, heavily armed. ETA 20 minutes. Through his crystalline interface, Mike suddenly stiffened. "The Scatheri are showing me something. Memories of the attack. The hunters use quantum disruption weapons. They shatter the crystal matrix and harvest the fragments, stealing pieces of the collective consciousness for their own technology." Reynolds's voice was grim. "How long would the medical procedure take?" "At least an hour," Olivia replied, already mentally planning the modifications needed. "Maybe longer. We're talking about synchronizing our neural tech with an alien consciousness that spans a city-sized vessel." "We don't have an hour," Anderson said quietly. Emma stepped forward, her fingers dancing across her datapad. "Yes, we do. Look at these readings. The hunters' weapons work by creating quantum disruption fields. But our neural regeneration equipment operates on similar principles to prevent neural decay. If we reverse the polarity, we could create a quantum stability field," Olivia finished, catching on. "It won't stop their weapons completely, but it might buy us time." Mike's crystallized helm tilted as he communicated with the Scatheri. "They say it's impossible. Their own shielding technology couldn't withstand the hunters' weapons. Our primitive neural tech couldn't possibly. They don't understand humans very well, do they?" Anderson grinned. "Our whole history is doing impossible things with tech we barely understand." Reynolds's voice carried new energy. "Dr. Barnes, you have command authority for this operation. Whatever you need, it's yours. Emma, help her modify the medical equipment. Anderson, get our weapons online. We may not be able to stop them, but we can sure as hell distract them." Olivia was already moving, mind racing through the procedure. "Mike, I need you to come to medical. Your neural interface is our best connection to their consciousness. Emma, start transferring your quantum scanner protocols to my systems. Anderson, I need power rerouted from non-essential systems to medical." As the crew rushed to their tasks, Olivia felt the familiar calm of crisis response settling over her. This was why she'd become a deep space doctor, not just to patch up human bodies, but to face the unknown with nothing but knowledge, courage, and determination. Through Mike's interface, the Scatheri watched the humans scramble to save them, their collective consciousness rippling with a new emotion: hope. They had called into the void expecting only death. Instead, they found a species whose neural patterns might be primitive, whose technology might be basic, but whose determination to save others knew no bounds. In 20 minutes, the hunters would arrive, expecting to find easy prey. Instead, they would learn why humanity had survived every challenge the universe had thrown at them. Because humans never accepted impossible odds. They just found new ways to beat them. The first blast from the hunters' ships rocked the TNS Mercy just as Olivia finished calibrating the neural regeneration array. The modified medical equipment hummed with an otherworldly resonance, sending pulses of stabilizing energy through their connection to the Scatheri vessel. 3 Nexus-class warships, Anderson reported from Tactical, his voice tight. "They're positioning themselves in an attack formation. Our shields won't hold against a concentrated assault." Through the crystalline interface that now covered half his body, Mike conveyed the Scatheri's mounting terror. They'd recognized the ships, the same ones that attacked them before. They're led by one of their own, a fragment of their collective that was stolen and corrupted. Reynolds stood on the bridge, watching the sleek, predatory vessels maneuver into position. "Emma, how's the quantum stability field holding?" "Barely." Emma's fingers flew across her console, making micro-adjustments. "The hunters' weapons are more sophisticated than we anticipated. Each hit destabilizes the field exponentially. We need at least 40 more minutes to complete the neural transfer." Another blast rocked the ship. Warning lights flashed across every console. "Shield integrity at 64% and falling," the computer announced calmly. "Captain," Anderson called out, "I'm detecting something strange. The hunters' ships, their weapon systems use the same crystalline technology they've stolen from other victims. It's like they're collecting consciousness." Reynolds' eyes narrowed. "Emma, can you confirm?" "Confirmed," she replied, scanning the enemy vessels. "Their whole weapons array is built from harvested crystal matrices, each one containing fragments of stolen minds, forced to power their technology." In the medical bay, Olivia watched the neural readouts as the Scatheri collective processed this information through Mike's interface. The crystalline patterns shifted, revealing something new. "Captain," Mike's harmonically enhanced voice carried a note of discovery. "The Scatheri are showing me something. A corrupted fragment leading the hunters. It doesn't just power their weapons. It guides them. The entire attack fleet is linked through stolen consciousness. And if it's linked..." Anderson's eyes lit up with sudden understanding. "Then it's vulnerable," Reynolds finished. "The same way the Scatheri's collective was vulnerable. Dr. Barnes, can we modify your neural regeneration beam? Turn it from a stabilizing influence into something more disruptive." Olivia studied her equipment, mind racing. These systems were designed to heal neural patterns, not destroy them. But if we invert the quantum resonance and match it to the frequency of the hunters' stolen technology, we could shatter their weapons array, Emma completed the thought. Maybe even free the stolen consciousness fragments. Another hit rocked the ship. "Shields at 41%, the computer reminded them. "Do it," Reynolds ordered. "Anderson, keep their attention on us. Make them think we're just some primitive vessel making a suicidal last stand." The next few minutes were a symphony of coordinated chaos. While Anderson engaged in a deadly dance with the hunter ships, Olivia and Emma worked frantically to modify the neural regeneration array. Through it all, Mike remained connected to the Scytheri, their collective consciousness watching in fascination as the humans executed their desperate plan. Modifications complete, Olivia announced finally. But Captain, we'll only get one shot. Using medical equipment as a weapon, it's going to burn out the entire system. Shields at 23%, the computer helpfully added. Reynolds looked at the tactical display, where the hunter ships had finally moved into perfect attack position, their crystalline weapons charging for a killing blow. They think they have us right where they want us, he said quietly. That's their mistake. All hands, brace for impact. Dr. Barnes, show them why you don't mess with human ingenuity. Olivia took a deep breath and activated the modified array. The Mercy's medical systems screamed as they channeled power never meant to flow through healing equipment. Through Mike's interface, they felt the Scytheri collective add their remaining strength to the pulse. The beam that erupted from the Mercy wasn't visible to human eyes, but across quantum dimensions, it sang with the combined harmonics of human neural patterns and crystalline consciousness, a song of liberation and destruction. The hunter ships never knew what hit them. The quantum pulse rippled through space like a stone dropped in a cosmic pond. On the hunter's lead ship, the corrupted Scytheri fragment screamed across crystalline networks as its control began to shatter. The stolen consciousness fragments, imprisoned within weapon arrays and navigation systems, awakened to their first moment of freedom in years. Direct hit, Anderson reported, his voice filled with wonder. Their weapon systems are singing. I don't even know how to describe these readings. Through his crystallized interface, Mike translated the chaos they were witnessing. The freed fragments are fighting back. They're turning the hunter's own systems against them. But, he paused, his harmonically enhanced voice tightening. The corrupted fragment is trying to reassert control. It's willing to destroy everything, including itself, to maintain power. The tactical display showed the hunter ships spinning in erratic patterns, their crystal-based technology flickering between frequencies as imprisoned and corrupted consciousness fought for dominance. Emma, Reynolds called out. Status of our medical systems. Completely fried, she reported grimly. The neural regeneration array is burned out. We couldn't generate another pulse if we wanted to. Incoming. Anderson's warning came just as the lead hunter ship fired, not with its sophisticated crystal weapons, but with primitive projectile weapons. The blast caught the Mercy's weakened shields, sending tremors through the hull. Shields critical, the computer announced. Hull breach imminent on decks 3 through 5. Olivia's voice cut through the chaos from medical. Captain, the Scytheri are trying to tell us something through Mike. Something about resonance patterns in the freed fragments. Reynolds leaned forward. Emma, can you detect it? Emma's fingers danced across her console. Yes. The freed fragments are trying to synchronize with each other, but the corrupted fragment is generating interference. If we could broadcast a carrier wave for them to lock onto. Our communications array, Anderson interrupted. It's basic tech, but Mike's crystallized interface proved that even primitive human systems can connect with their consciousness. Reynolds nodded sharply. Do it. Full power to communications, broadcast on all frequencies. The Mercy's communications array hummed to life, sending out a simple, steady signal, a beacon in the quantum storm. Through Mike's interface, they felt the Scytheri collective add their own pattern to the broadcast, weaving a symphony of consciousness that called to their imprisoned kin. On the tactical display, the hunter ship's erratic movements began to stabilize, but not under their original control. One by one, the freed fragments found the rhythm, synchronizing with each other and with the Scytheri song. The corrupted fragment, Mike reported suddenly, his voice tense. It's making one last attempt. It's, oh God. The lead hunter ship's engines flared brilliant white as its corrupted controller initiated an overload sequence. The other hunter ships, now under the control of the freed fragments, began to retreat. They can't maintain synchronization and escape at the same time. Emma warned. The corrupted fragment knows this. It's trying to take everyone with it. Reynolds stood from his chair. Dr. Barnes, can Mike's interface handle more load? Technically, yes, but do it. Anderson, divert all remaining power to the communications array. Emma, focus our carrier wave on the lead ship. We're going to give the freed fragments something stronger to synchronize with. Through the crystallized interface, Mike felt the full force of human and Scytheri consciousness combined, not fighting against each other, but working in harmony. The Mercy's simple carrier wave became a lifeline, a pattern strong enough to cut through the corruption's interference. The lead hunter ship's engine flare dimmed, then stabilized. On the tactical display, its erratic movements ceased. The corrupted fragment, Mike reported, his voice filled with awe. The others overwhelmed it. They're not just free. They're whole again. Different from the main Scytheri collective, but unified in their own way. Reynolds allowed himself a small smile. Send them our coordinates for the nearest Federation outpost. I have a feeling Starfleet intelligence will be very interested in debriefing a group of consciousness that survived Nexus pirate control. As the hunter ships departed, now crewed by their newly freed inhabitants, the bridge crew of the Mercy finally allowed themselves to breathe. They had just witnessed something unprecedented. The power of human ingenuity combined with alien consciousness, turning instruments of healing into weapons of liberation. And they weren't done yet. They still had a damaged Scytheri vessel to repair. With the hunters gone, the true scope of their challenge became clear. The Mercy's medical bay, transformed into an improper weapon, lay in ruins. Crystalline fractures spread across the Scytheri vessel's surface like cracks in ice, and through Mike's interface, they felt the collective consciousness continuing to fade. Main power restored, Anderson reported from his station. But our neural regeneration equipment is beyond repair. We've got nothing left to stabilize their matrix. Olivia stood in the wreckage of her medical bay, scanning through backup systems and emergency protocols. There has to be a way. We didn't fight off 3 hunter ships just to watch them die anyway. Wait. Emma's voice cut through the ship's comm. During the battle, when we combined human neural patterns with their crystalline consciousness, did you feel it, Mike? The resonance? Mike, now almost entirely encased in crystal, nodded slowly. It was like 2 different instruments finding harmony. Human consciousness provided a framework that their fragmenting collective could anchor to. Exactly. Emma's excitement was palpable. Dr. Barnes, remember what you said about primitive human neural patterns. What if that's not a weakness? What if it's exactly what they need? Olivia's eyes widened as she followed Emma's logic. A biological scaffold, like using a simple wooden frame to support a damaged building while it heals. But the neural regeneration equipment is destroyed, Reynolds reminded them from the bridge. We don't need it. Emma pressed. We already have a working interface through Mike. If we could replicate that connection with a few more volunteers. A heavy silence fell over the ship's comm. Everyone understood what she was suggesting, and the risks it carried. The crystallization process would be voluntary this time, Olivia said quietly. Controlled. But we have no way of knowing the long-term effects on human consciousness. It could be a one-way trip. Through his interface, Mike conveyed a wave of emotion from the Scytheri, protest, concern, and something deeper. They're refusing. They say we've risked too much already. They won't allow us to sacrifice more. Reynolds's voice was firm. With all due respect to our crystalline friends, that's not their decision to make. This crew volunteered for this mission knowing the risks. We're not stopping now. He paused. I'll be the first volunteer. Like hell you will, Anderson cut in. You're needed on the bridge. I'm already familiar with their weapon systems. Might as well get familiar with their consciousness too. Count me in, Emma added. I understand the quantum mechanics better than anyone except Mike. It makes sense for me too. All of you, shut up. Olivia interrupted. If anyone's going to supervise a dangerous, experimental neural procedure, It's going to be the chief medical officer. I'm going in with Mike. Emma, you'll monitor from your station. Anderson, we'll need you ready with emergency protocols if something goes wrong. Captain, you'll coordinate from the bridge. Through the crystal matrix, the Scatheri collective rippled with a new emotion. Hope, tinged with deep respect for these humans who would risk their individual consciousness to save a collective mind they barely understood. In the remains of the medical bay, Olivia began preparing for the procedure. She positioned herself next to Mike, taking his crystallized hand. Ready? Mike's harmonic voice carried a smile. You know, in medical school they never covered being partially crystallized to save a city-sized alien consciousness. They never cover the interesting parts in medical school, Olivia replied, then nodded to Emma. Do it. The crystallization, when it began, was unlike anything Olivia had imagined. It wasn't cold or painful. It felt like falling into a dream where every thought echoed across infinite facets of awareness. Through Mike's earlier connection, this Scatheri collective welcomed them, their fragmenting consciousness beginning to stabilize around the simple, sturdy frameworks of human neural patterns. As her individual awareness merged with the collective, Olivia understood something profound. The Scatheri weren't just using human consciousness as a scaffold. They were learning from it. In the space between crystalline thought and human emotion, something new was being born. The healing had begun, but its true effects would reshape both species in ways none of them could have predicted. 3 days after the procedure, Captain Reynolds stood in the observation deck, watching crystalline patterns slowly recede from Olivia and Mike's skin. The massive Scatheri vessel beside them pulsed with renewed vigor, its fractures healing with a luminescence that turned the surrounding space into an aurora of quantum light. How does it feel? He asked, studying their faces for any lingering effects. Olivia flexed her fingers, watching the last crystal fragments flake away, like waking up from the most incredible dream, but remembering everything. She turned to Mike. Did you feel it too? At the end. Mike nodded, his eyes distant with wonder. They showed us their history, countless cycles of evolution from individual crystal formations to collective consciousness. But what amazed them most was us. Our ability to be both individual and connected, separate but willing to join together for a greater purpose. Emma entered the observation deck, her datapad displaying streams of new information. The quantum insights they shared with us, while you were connected, it's revolutionary. Their understanding of crystalline computing alone could advance human technology by centuries. But they're most interested in studying how our minds work. A consciousness that maintains individuality even when working as one, Anderson added from his station. They never thought it was possible until they saw it in us. Through the observation window, the Scatheri vessel shifted, revealing newly formed facets that sparkled with internal light. The damage from the hunter's attack was almost completely healed, but something was different about its structure now. They're implementing what they learned from us, Mike explained, sensing their curiosity. Creating spaces within their collective matrix for individual growth and variation, while maintaining their unity. They call it the human pattern. Reynolds smiled. And what do they call that? He pointed to a new formation taking shape on the vessel's surface, a crystalline structure that resembled a human hand reaching toward the stars. That's their message to humanity, Olivia said softly. In their culture, offering a piece of their collective consciousness to another species is the highest form of trust. They want to establish a permanent exchange program, humans willing to temporarily join their collective and fragments of their consciousness studying our way of life. The Federation's going to have a field day with this one, Anderson chuckled. First contact, defeating space pirates, and revolutionizing our understanding of consciousness, all in one unauthorized rescue mission. Speaking of unauthorized, Emma interjected, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Stern is, well, apoplectic might be an understatement. Reynolds straightened his uniform. Patch him through to my ready room. I suppose it's time to face the music. Before he could leave, Mike called out, "Captain, this Cathari wanted you to know something. In all their cycles of existence, they never encountered a species willing to sacrifice so much to save strangers. They say humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our intelligence. It's our capacity to risk everything to help others, even those completely different from ourselves." The captain paused at the door. "Tell them that's just what humans do. When we hear a cry for help in the darkness, we answer. It's who we are." As Reynolds left to face what would undoubtedly be a legendary dressing down from Admiral Stern, the rest of the crew continued to watch the Scathari vessel's transformation. The crystalline hand reaching toward the stars was joined by other symbols. A double helix formed from quantum light, a representation of human neural pathways rendered in living crystal, a pattern that somehow captured the very essence of human compassion. Two species had entered this encounter as strangers, one ancient and collective, one young and individual. They emerged as something more, proof that consciousness, whether born of carbon or crystal, could bridge any gap when guided by understanding and sacrifice. The TNS Mercy's unauthorized rescue mission would be recorded in Federation history as humanity's first step toward a new kind of evolution, not of body or technology, but of consciousness itself. And in the depths of space, a crystalline vessel now carried within its collective matrix an indelible truth, that in humanity's so-called primitive individuality lay the seeds of the galaxy's greatest strength, the power to remain oneself while joining together for something greater than any one being could achieve alone.